I wanted to get Dr. Group on about this article that people also liked when he was on 2 weeks ago. And we had the Ask Dr. Group a question on supplements, on cleaning up your body, on detoxing, something that he harps on a lot. It's out of the Daily Mail today. Exposure to common household pesticides triples boys' risk of ADHD. Really, you mean bug poison might not be good for you? Experts warn. A pesticide found in common household products has been found to triple boys' risk of being diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Yeah, roaches run around at first when you spray them with poison too. Scientists have warned. Symptoms of the condition, notably hyperactivity and impulsive activity, have found to be associated with exposure to pyrethroid pesticides, which is one of the most common ones that comes from a flower in South Africa that they claim is pretty safe. Chrysanthemum, yeah. Look, I'm not stupid, but my dad would tell me when I was 10, 11, 12 years old or even younger, take the dogs out and give them a bath. They got fleas. And I remember I'd wash them with pyrethrin soap. And I remember getting higher than a kite. But my dad was a smart guy, but he kind of went with the system that pyrethrins are safe for humans. No, I should have been wearing gloves. And I'd get it all over me, and I'd be back there, on the porch or the front yard, out there with the water hose, washing the dogs, scrubbing them, everything. That was one of my chores, mowing the lawn, carrying out the trash, helping him clean out the gutters. Now kids just watch television and dream of being in the Red Guards, but I can't wait for Red Terror to be carried out on Jones. Yeah, man. Can't wait to kill him. That might be easier than you think, actually. Then you're going to get locked up in a Supermax prison. But continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're talking about. And you add thousands of chemicals and the stuff that's in the clothes and everything, that's why we got a whacked out society. The elite are whacked out because they're inbred, decadent, out of their minds. History shows that happens over and over again. So Dr. Group, InfoWarsLife.com's main advisor and quality control officer, Army Special Ops veteran. He's got a whole bunch of nutritionist degrees, alternative medicine degrees, a chiropractor as well. I won't go over his amazing background, but he's really a smart guy. We have medical doctors that advise us as well, and my dad's a chemist and other things. He advises InfoWarsLife.com. But he's pioneered a lot of the research that's cutting edge out there today. And of course, it's mirrored by a lot of the research of Dr. Blaylock, who's, of course, a retired brain surgeon. But here we are going over all this today. Dr. Group, what should we hit first? I mean, I know you've got an agenda of stuff you want to cover and take calls at the bottom of the hour, but every time you come in, you harp on what's under the kitchen cabinet or what these flower extracts are doing. What is your overall view on this situation?
Well, I've been saying for a long time, addressing the root cause of disease is one thing. And really, when you look at the pharmaceutical companies, there's two branches. One branch is disease management, and the other branch is mental illness creation and management. And all of them, whether it's ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, all of that's caused by too many chemicals coming in and not enough coming out.
And folks knew that. They used to say mad as a hatter for folks that worked around mercury.
Right. So again, it's the medical profession and the pharmaceutical companies creating illnesses and creating conditions, and they're saying it's a chemical imbalance in the brain, but it's really chemical toxicity in the brain. That's why 3,000 people a month die from psychiatric medications, and that's why our children are being medicated now, because it's an easy way to put people on medications for the rest of their life. They're even trying to diagnose children in the womb with bipolar disease right now. They want every single person from the age of 1 on some medication for life. There's 4-year-olds that have attempted suicide. There's 5-year-olds that have actually committed suicide because of the
But that's okay, because the federal initiative that's 10 years old is called the New Freedom Initiative, which admits its goal is to basically drug everybody. Its interim goal is by 2015, I guess that's this year, to have half the kids in the country on a psychiatric drug. They haven't reached that yet, but they're working towards it.
Right. And if you leave a psychiatrist's office without a prescription, there's even a mental disorder for that, where they can put on your record that you left without a prescription and you have mental illness because you left. So, yes, they want to it's the labeling of the new society. So in the future, they can take your rights away from you because you're mentally unstable and you have some form of mental disorder, whether it's ADD, ADHD, whether it's a phobia, biting your fingernails, eating organic food. It doesn't matter.
Not trusting big government. I mean, they're creating scores of new mental illnesses every year.
Right. Well, the DSM-5 now has over 400 mental illnesses in it, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And not only that, but the psychiatric medications, most of them contain fluoride, which calcifies the pineal gland, demotivates you. What's happening is turning people into zombies, and we're not creating geniuses again like we used to. Most of the world's best geniuses, Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, all of those individuals would have been labeled with learning disabilities and put on some sort of medication. So it's the dumbing down with the inclusion of the vaccinations and all the other chemicals and toxins like what you were talking about earlier in the home and in the environment, in the schools, in the workplace, that people and children are being exposed to, and the children are just a lot more sensitive to it than the adults. But
I remember when I would use pyrethrin-based stuff, I would get hyper, I would get sped up from it. I mean, I just remember feeling weird after I would wash the dogs, and then now here it is, just admitted, and they said it was totally safe for humans to be around, but of course we know that's not true. We've got more info on Fukushima coming up in the next segment. I also want to get into a BizPac review where the former psychiatric head of Johns Hopkins has come out and said that this whole move for men to be women and women to be men is a psychiatric illness. Well, I know that they call it disabling yourself a new right to chop your arms and legs off. And they have a term for that. We're going to talk about that coming up in a moment. But how much of it is chemical manipulation? We'll talk about that with Dr. Group in the next segment. And we'll take some of your questions if you'd like to call. The number is 800-259-9231. Ask Dr. Group, 800-259-9231. Oh, and first-time callers, I want to give them a chance today. 800-259-9231. Again, please be a first-time caller. 800-259-9231. But look at these headlines. Ray Kurzweil, humans will be hybrids by 2030. That's that's Google's main futurist. Daily Mail, world's first bio-limb created. Dead arm brought back to life in the lab could allow amputees to grow replacement limbs. Google founder defends accident record of self-driving cars as another one rear-ends somebody. And Google, of course, is defending itself. Facebook addiction linked to depression, Reuters is reporting. Oh, yeah, video game playing linked to lower IQ and brain damage. And here's another headline, BPA still widespread in cans. So we've had a victory in that BPA that Dr. Group's dad was involved in inventing, a famous chemist. We've had victory in getting it removed some places, and they act like they're removing it, but then they just come right back with it. So the fight is still ongoing. I just threw out a whole smattering of articles there in this short segment. Which one of those you want to tackle first, Dr. Group?
Well, you were talking about the transgender, and I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a mental illness or a degenerative disease, it's all caused by the accumulation of chemicals. And the whole transgender situation that's going on is really because we have too many chemicals that are in the water and the food, and they're getting into the system and creating excess estrogen because they're endocrine disrupting chemicals, which disrupt your endocrine glands, and your endocrine glands are what regulates and secretes your hormones. And what that does is it decreases fertility. It causes you to become sterile. And these are all things like BPA, dioxins, BPS, the atrazine, phthalates, perchlorate, fire retardants, even lead, mercury, arsenic, all of these things that we're exposed to.
Well, explain it to me how BPA, from just the research I've looked at, this mainline science, makes females more female, male more feminine, causes women to degenerate in their breasts and other sexual tissues, makes girls go into puberty earlier. So it's all feminizing. They know it's doing this, and then they argue, oh, it's a mental illness. Well, I'm not a big researcher like you are, but I've done scientific research. My dad has done research. I mean, I know that in the embryo of fish, in the embryo of mammals, in the embryo of amphibians, we're going to come back from break, because that's when I wanted to address this in full, that chemicals do change. And from what I've read, I mean, aren't embryos, when they're really small, more female than male, and they change into male? I mean, I'm saying that as a layman there, and that these chemicals basically do develop more feminine type traits in brain tissue. And then I see the comments on InfoWars, no, that's not true. You're either male or female. So I think there's an argument that some of this could be natural, some of it not. But, I mean, I know that chemicals are making male fish female and male frogs female or hermaphrodites. So the folks that are on InfoWars commenting saying I'm wrong, aren't they wrong? I mean, I'm going to go back into the science and do a whole report on this, proving it to them. But, I mean, isn't that mainline science?
It is mainline science, and there's plenty of research out there to back it up. I mean, BPA is really just a xenoestrogen, and a xenoestrogen is a type of xenohormone or artificial hormone that imitates estrogen. And I mean, everything plastic these days contains BPA, the inside of cans. And just because they said that BPA was taken out of baby bottles, that's pretty much the only thing that BPA was taken out of. It's still in the
liners of the microwavable, so you just cook it into your food.
Yeah, and what happens is the body identifies BPA as the real thing. It thinks the BPA is actually estrogen. So what you're having is hormone replacement therapy, courtesy of the government, on every single person.
So it's like a man that chooses to be a woman taking it to become a tranny.
Yeah, because your body behaves like it's loaded with estrogen, and that affects fertility, breast health. You can grow breasts.
Does it affect sexual persuasion?
Absolutely it does. In the brain, especially for the pregnant mother, and these are all documented studies. And
I want to do this. I want to get you to town with the studies and do a whole hour special on this, because I'm sick of folks saying it isn't true. We'll be back. Robert, Dave, Mike, Jim, Christian, and others, we're going to be going to your phone calls, your questions for Dr. Group here in about 10 minutes or so. But Dr. Group, pulling back, I read the news 7 days a week, and I've just seen countless studies. We've covered them. I do want to do a special report. We show all these studies, but I want you to talk about it some, because I've got a report here where former Johns Hopkins chief of psychiatry says being transgender is a mental disorder, biologically impossible. Well, I think it's a perfect storm of things. You've got it in the education system being pushed to balkanize and change society. As societies get older and more decadent, as empires get more decadent, this always happens. People just want to try different things. But the chemicals being added supercharges it. That's what they do. That's the effects it has in amphibians, fish, and other mammals. You give them estrogen, they start behaving like a female. And when I talk about this, they have mainstream media come out and say, Alex is bashing gay, saying juice boxes make little boys gay. And it also, gives them prostate cancer earlier. It also makes little girls go into puberty when they're 5 years old. I mean, this is getting crazy. Where the average age of puberty used to be, 14? Now it's like 10 or 9. Children as young as 3 are going into puberty. Breast cancer skyrocketing. And so, yeah, a lot of folks want to say it is a choice completely so they can judge somebody and hate them. I'm not about that. But I am about exposing the Brave New World aspect that Aldous Huxley wrote about in 1932 with Brave New World. And he gave a speech in 1962 at Berkeley saying this was a real plan to end the sexes and make us drones. Now, whether they're going to get away with it or not remains to be seen, but we're all in a giant globalist experiment, and I am an expert on that, and I made the film Endgame exposing it. So break down the science of this and what you think's happening with folks like Caitlyn Jenner and that whole cocktail, what you think the prime driver of this agenda is?
I think